Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Breakfast today. And our main story is that a long list of new legislation is going to be outlined in the King's speech this morning as he officially opens Parliament. Now, we understand there'll be more than 35 bills in all, and the one that's expected to be included is the resurrection of the previous government's proposed ban on smoking. Anyone born after 2009 buying tobacco. Now, you might remember legislation on this was due to happen earlier in the year. Then it was paused due to the election, and it promised to create the first smoke-free generation. According to the Department of Health and Social Care, 80,000 people across the UK die each year due to smoking. It's still the single largest preventable cause of death in England, and it's responsible for 1 in 4 of all cancer deaths. It's estimated to cost the economy and the wider society £17 billion a year. That's in lost earnings, in early deaths, unemployment, and in costs to the NHS and social care services.
Well, we're joined now by Fiona Castle, wife of the entertainer Roy Castle, who died from lung cancer in 1994, despite never having been a smoker. We also welcome Dr. Sakti Karunaniti this morning, who's Director of Public Health at Lancashire County Council. A very good morning to you. From a public health perspective, how big a step forward would this be?
It will be a massive step forward, not just to improve the health of the nation, but also the wealth of the nation. As we've seen there, smoking doesn't just cost a lot of lives. Over 1 million people have lost their lives due to smoking from 2010. But as we've seen in John's speech, it's costing us a lot of money, especially loss of productivity in the economy, as well as the demand on the NHS. So we really hope that it will be there on the King's speech.
Presumably because of it being incremental year by year, people sort of dropping off the capacity to buy them, it will be a long time before we felt the benefits of this, though.
It will be both short-term and long-term. So the moment somebody quits smoking, they feel better, their functionality improves, and their lung capacity, lung functions improve. Generally, people feel healthier, and therefore there's an immediate impact in terms of across the life course, from babies being exposed to parents smoking right up to even long-term smokers. Quitting smoking will improve their health. So it's both short-term and long-term benefits that we'll start to see.
We'll leave you there for now. We're also joined this morning by Fiona Castle, who Nina mentioned, by Sue Mountain, who's a cancer survivor and joins us from South Shields. Good morning to both of you. Yeah. Sue, as somebody who survived lung cancer, when you hear about measures of phasing out smoking, what are you thinking?
Oh, I really hope it does go through. I hope it goes through on the King's speech, because I don't want people to go through what I went through. And it's not nice getting cancer, a preventable cancer through smoking, and having to tell your family. So hopefully this bill does go through and will lessen the chances of young children starting to smoke like I did.
How old were you when you started, Sue?
11.
11. And how long did you smoke for?
37 years.
And so when you imagine that younger children, teenagers would no longer be able to smoke under this plan, and that year by year it would get harder for people to buy cigarettes, do you think is that the solution? Because it's quite complicated, isn't it? It's quite a lot to get your head around.
It's a lot to get your head around, yeah. But you know what? I look at my grandchildren and, God, honestly, I tear up the thought that they'll live in a society, hopefully, where they don't even know about smoking. There's a very little chance of them actually starting to smoke, and it's not normalised.
And that's it, Fiona, isn't it? That's sort of already begun. It's gone out of fashion, and we'll talk about vapes in a moment. But this, to you, does it feel like it's happening quickly enough? Because you've been campaigning for so long.
That's right. It's 30 years since we started now. And that was just before Roy died. My husband died of lung cancer. And the important thing that he was able to say was that he had never smoked, and it was through passive smoking. And that happened as a result of Roy's illness and making aware of it. But it took time, but it was worth the wait. It was worth the persistence. And I think that's the same today.
Will today feel like a big moment if this legislation comes through the King's Speech?
I think it'll be wonderful, because I think people are thinking, oh, well, that's something that happened ages ago, we're all right. And also with the vaping, which is a terrifying thing, because we don't know the long-term dangers of that yet. Just as we didn't know the long-term dangers of passive smoking at that time. And it took some years for that to happen.
So you're nodding there when Fiona mentioned vaping. Is that something that concerns you too?
Well, nobody wants young children to start vaping, but, you know, if this bill goes through, it gives the government the powers to like curb vaping for young people. It'll stop like the advertisement of sweet vapes to young children. But we've got to remember that vaping is a really great tool to help people to quit smoking.
That's a good point, isn't it?
It's a great tool, and so many people are quitting smoking. I mean, even Chris Whitty says, if you don't smoke, don't vape. But if you smoke, use it as a tool to quit.
And from a public health perspective, how do you walk that line? Because a vape is preferable, evidence would suggest, to a cigarette, but neither is the ultimate, isn't it? Yes,
but the ultimate aim is to make smoking history and to create a brighter, better future for the society, and not just a healthier society, but a wealthier society. But if there is one place for vapes, it's for people who already smoke. That can be a good help to reduce harm or as a part of the quit journey. But the way that this has evolved in our society in the last few years, it's gone too far, especially advertising and marketing and targeted to young people, which we don't necessarily need. So the key thing is, if you don't smoke, don't vape. If you smoke, it can be a helpful tool. That's the fine line we're walking here.
What do we know about the potential damage of vapes?
Well, it's still being explored and studied. It's too early to say. But one thing we, as a practicing public health physician, I know is that it's the addictive nature of it, and particularly targeted at the young people. Yes, you don't have the harms of all the other chemicals in a cigarette, but still it is very addictive, and especially when it's marketed towards young people. We've heard lots of anecdotes in schools, for instance. It's affecting their learning, and it is distracting young people, and indeed the ills on the environment, and all of that we've seen, and the disposable nature of the batteries and so on.
So that nicotine addiction.
Absolutely, nicotine is addictive, and why would we have a product that makes our young people particularly addictive who've never smoked? So that's the debate.
Fiona, coming back to you, we've just had an email in while we're all talking here from Mandy, who's at home, and she says it shouldn't be up to the government to be having this phased-out banning of smoking. She said it should be everybody's choice. How much does alcohol cost? What about the additional problems with court cases and jails expenses? The government should be concentrating on getting its priorities right and not stopping people doing what they might just choose and want to do. What do you say to Mandy, Fiona?
Well, I think she's got a point there, but the thing is that the cost of caring for people who have lung cancer and various different illnesses as a result of smoking is costing the government a fortune. So it needs to be balanced, and we need to support the people who decide that they want to give up smoking, because we know that that's very good for the country as well. And also for the coming generations, which is really important. It's not just for us and for our generation, it's for the future.
And so, I mean, would you like to say to somebody who's watching at home, who's still smoking and maybe has smoked for many years and thinks they're invincible, what would you say to them?
What I would say is educate yourself on cigarettes, on smoking. It kills 2 out of 3 people. It really does. And you know what? You think when you're smoking, it'll never happen to me. And you always look at that older person smoking. Look at the statistics of how many people die early age because of smoking. It is an addiction, and I was very much like that lady who's just wrote in. Don't take my choice away, but you know what? We're looking after people's future, and if they're seeing me not being able to swallow, eat, and seeing the devastation on my family, they may think twice about smoking, because it affects not just the person that smokes, it affects the whole family, and you wouldn't want that on anybody's
a powerful message to end on. Thank you so much, Sue, and to you, Fiona, and to you, Sakti, for your time this morning. Some really important messages.
Just after 20